All right, ladies and gentlemen, you guessed it. I have a podcast. I mean, everyone else has one. I should too, right? I want to thank Jason Ahrensberg and Ryan Nisker for helping putting this thing together. You guys are awesome. I also like to thank my parents for sticking with me through this tough time as we've been preparing this podcast. This is called Down to the Studs. And, I am a real estate agent, one of over 62,000 in the city of Toronto. And there's probably 62,000 real estate podcasts. Well, we want to do things a little bit differently. Like I say to my clients, I'm not in the real estate business. I'm in the people business. This isn't a real estate podcast. This is a people podcast. And our first person, our first stud is Rafa Financial, Rafa of the Morning Tilt. And you can follow him on Twitter as Can't Guard Rafa. Came in hot with the Kivas. I've got bagels for the next 12 months probably. Cream cheese, tuna. I'm pretty sure I saw some smoked salmon.
100%.
Thank you very much for hanging out. I've never done this before. You are a veteran of the podcast game with the Morning Tilt. That's why I have a glass of vodka here to loosen me up a little bit.
There you
go. So I guess we can start there. The Morning Tilt. How did that come to be? Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, right before I get into that, that was my first time hearing the name of this podcast. I think it was kept a secret. I love it.
Honestly, it took a long time to figure it out.
Yeah.
Down to the Studs. I don't even know if I like it yet. We might change it. It's a working title.
Yeah.
But I think it works. I think they call it a double entendre.
I was just going to say that.
Right?
Yeah.
I was thinking of a sexual innuendo. It's not a sexual, it's a double entendre, which means that the word has two meanings. So Down to the Studs, which like the house we're in right now, I renovated Down to the Studs, but also Down to the Studs, two studs, just hanging out, having a conversation.
That's it. No, it's great title, by the way.
Thank you.
And great job doing homework, Twitter handle, live.
I had to, I see it. I only follow about 15 people on Twitter, and I see you talking about the Saints all day long.
Man, if I spent as much time doing anything else that I spend on Twitter, who knows where I'd be.
Well, listen, you're pretty good guy when it comes to mortgages in the city of Toronto. You are my go-to. I will say that. So I thank you for all that you've done for my business. And again, I thank you for coming on.
Yeah, dude, my pleasure. And it's only the beginning. Yeah. So, but that being said, Morning Tilt. Where did we start? How did we start? So back in our 5th year at university, because it was just too fun, I had to do another semester. Craig and Corey, the other two guys I do the podcast with, were living together. And football season rolled around, and we're just sitting in their apartment, the three of us, and we're just like, all we want to do is talk about sports all day. No need to do. We used to make a joke like, who could take the least amount of steps on a Sunday? Because all we do is just sit there and watch football for 11 hours.
Just crack open beers and
that's it.
And fill into the couch.
That's it. Like Chinese food from downstairs, and just who could take the least amount of steps possible.
Right.
And we talked about a podcast briefly, but we're like, no, we're too lazy. Nothing really going on. Fast forward a couple of years, and I think Corey invited us over to watch football one Sunday. We were all me and Craig living in Thornhill. Corey lives actually right near your place. We're sitting there, and Corey goes, why don't we just do the podcast? We talked about it here. We could record it here. Literally got off the couch, drove to Long and McQuaid, rented all the equipment, had no idea what we needed. We just asked the guy, hey, what do we need? He gave us 3 mics, an interface, went back to his place, watched a 35-minute YouTube tutorial on how to use the equipment, and just started recording right off the bat.
Right. Well, I feel like everybody's thought of starting a podcast at one time or another.
Yeah.
I know, when I dropped out of university, by the way, you said you took 5 years. I took 1 year, but then just dropped out. And I started blogging. So I was writing blogs about the Pittsburgh Steelers and about my predictions on the football season. And that was the big thing. I don't even know if there was vlogging back then. So I was blogging, actually typing.
Yeah.
And, I always said, I want to do a podcast, but just never had the guts to do it. And it does take guts because, it takes time.
Yeah.
It takes at least some level of organization. And it takes commitment because you can't just do it once and then come back to do it 2 months later and then do it 2 weeks later and then do it 3 months later. You guys are doing this thing every single week, right?
Yeah, we're weekly. We're on schedule. Don't get me wrong. The first, I want to say 10 to 20 episodes, we have a shared Google Drive. We were in it all day, every day, planning and organizing. And it's gotten to a point now where I show up on a Thursday we set up the equipment and we pretty much just talk for an hour straight
Right.
with no real, I mean, it's just become so organic, and especially with sports, which will be a little different than your podcast, but still having different people on talking about different stuff. But for sports, we're being fed our content every week because something's happening every day.
Right.
Which makes our lives a lot easier.
Yeah, you can look to see at the scores from last night's game, and be careful with hitting the table. We're still learning the podcast here. I think everyone's hearing the tapping.
Yeah.
But you know, it's with my podcast. with my podcast, everybody in real estate does some sort of real estate podcasting, and they're talking about the market updates, and they're talking about what to buy, what to renovate, talking about numbers. I feel like there's enough of that out there that if I did that, I wouldn't really be filling a void. I more so want to talk to the community, talk with the community. And if I can learn about other people who are, whether they're entrepreneurs, whether they, did different things to run a side hustle during COVID, or whether they're mortgage brokers, whether it relates to real estate or not, I want to learn their story so that I can learn. And then if people who decide to watch can learn as well, then that's amazing, right? So
I couldn't agree more. And at the end of the day, people, it's interesting having different people on talking about who knows what you're going to end up talking about. I think it's really interesting. And people who know you and have kind of been following what you've been up to, I think it's interesting to see you interact with other people too.
Yeah, no, and listen, that's the coolest part. Like, you walking into the house and be like, wow, I feel like I'm in the vlog.
Yeah.
And it was tough. I've never vlogged before. So it was a brand new thing to have to carry a camera around with me and try and create content, especially when I'm working a full-time job. And I didn't love doing it, but people liked seeing the updates, especially with something as cool as like a home renovation. So to kind of come full circle here, and my next piece of content being a podcast sitting here in my house is definitely very cool. Going on, just the last thing about sports here, the World Series.
Dude, so I'm a more recent, so I won't lie, I haven't been a lifetime fan, but I want to say 4 years ago.
Of baseball?
So of the Braves.
Oh, of the Braves,
and
okay.
My friends are all ripping me. Like, I know one of my buddies tweeted, like, I want to congratulate my good friend Max, who's been waiting 2 long years for this. But I fell in love with Ronald Acuna Jr., who's basically their best player, young stud, 3-4 years ago. And that was when I was trying to get into baseball, and I said, you know what, I'm just going to run with the Braves. I love this guy. I got his jersey, watched a bunch of their games. Fast forward 3 years, they just won the World Series, which is pretty crazy.
I don't watch. I mean, when the Jays are rolling, it's fun for me.
Yep.
But I think I stand with most of the community that baseball is kind of a boring sport when you're not, rooting for your home team. I can definitely sit down and watch and enjoy it and appreciate the different nuances of the game, but I did not watch 1 minute of postseason baseball.
I think it got its lowest rating, I think, in a long time.
Right.
First of all, I never understand why they have to find a way to not compete with the NFL, because competing with like last night, for example, sorry, not last night, but Sunday, they had a game on Sunday night. Like, who's not watching Sunday Night Football? Yeah. Which makes no sense to me.
And that was the final. Like, I wanted to watch it just so I could watch everybody parade around, holding the trophy, and like see what people had to say. That's the only reason why I want. And I still didn't watch it.
Yeah, I know. It's a shame. But something I found really interesting this year, and a lot of Toronto Jays fans could appreciate, is so the manager. Sorry, the GM or whatever his job is.
Alex Anthopoulos.
Right. Yeah. I think it's pretty cool to see that kind of come full circle.
He's Canadian.
First Canadian to ever, whatever his role is, to win a World Series, which is pretty awesome. And to see what he did. So Ronald Acuna got hurt right at the beginning of the season, and they were basically written off. At the trade deadline, he brought in, Jock Peterson, Soler, and Eddie Rosario, which were 3 guys who Rosario won NLCS MVP, and I think it's Soler hit 3 home runs in the World Series.
Crazy.
So basically, he just really brought that whole Toronto thing full circle. What he tried to do here, he's basically done it with the Braves, which is pretty cool.
If you made it through the baseball talk without falling asleep, and you've come to where we stand now, big sports fan, tell us kind of a little bit more about your journey to where you are now, which is, crushing the mortgage game.
Yeah. Not trying to be humble, but trying to crush it and looking to just keep crushing it. So where it started, graduating university, I was pretty lost just in terms of what I wanted to do. I was in business in school. That didn't really work out, so I dropped into a general arts program and was just kind of lost in terms of vision.
Which if I can just jump in, and I'm going to be doing that the whole time, just interrupting you, being rude, jumping in. No. I think that's something that a lot of people can relate to. Like, I know for me, I was never a school guy.
Yep.
And everybody was going on their certain paths. They knew I was going to do this, then I'm going to do that, and that's going to lead me to this. And I just kind of always had a blind trust in myself that no matter what happened, I would somehow figure it out. Like, is that kind of how you were feeling, or?
And that was exactly it, because I lean on my family in Florida, who's my mom's side of the family, who have just kind of been that entrepreneurial type mindset for basically the entire time I've known them. And they do well. And in my head, it was always, I'm going to figure it out. Whatever the case may be, whatever I decide to do, I know that I have the support, mainly just in terms of support in what I'm going to be doing, that it would work out. So when I graduated, I decided that I was going to go to Florida and basically intern for what they do. And they're in mortgages, but a little bit differently than what I'm doing is they're private lending specifically, which basically means they're loaning to people who can't get approved at a bank or even a B lender. I learned a ton. It was awesome. But what I then realized was I didn't want to move to Florida right now. It just wasn't really in the cards for me. So I decided to come back to Toronto and give it a go here. Signed up with a brokerage, not going to say names, but it was a shit show. It was just not for me. The support wasn't there.
Were you, like, I'm sure you had connections in Toronto in terms of the private lending world. Were you thinking about doing a little bit of more of the private lending stuff here in Toronto? Or was it like, I'm going to go be a broker and just do like standard residential stuff?
So originally it was, let's be a broker, because I just felt like too little of a fish in the pond, I guess, to be a private lender or even work for the private lender, because I knew how competitive that space was, especially in terms of people with the most money kind of make the most decisions. But getting to becoming a private lender, which I did for a while, this brokerage was a nightmare, and it kind of got me down on the whole industry on its own, because I just didn't feel mature enough yet to really, handhold people's financing for these huge decisions they're making. End up getting a job working downtown for an insurance company
with our boy Donnie.
With our boy Donnie.
With our boy Max Donsky, Burns and Wilcox, I remember.
Yeah. Funny story. I remember messaging him when I got the job, and I knew he worked there, and I'm like, hey, how is it? He's like, bro, it's good. Like, you're going to like it, whatever. First day I get there, he comes up to my desk like, bro, I just gave my 2 weeks. I'm sorry. Which was really funny, but obviously no hard feelings. If that job taught me anything, it was that I just wasn't made for 9 to 5. It was never going to be in the cards for me after that job. Not that they did anything wrong. It was just, for me, I needed to see some sort of financial return for the hard work I'm putting in. Like when I'm working as hard as I can, and I look over to the girl next to me playing Sudoku on her phone, and I realize we're getting the same paycheck on Friday. It just didn't sit right with me, which made me really realize, okay, you know what? It's time to really figure out what am I going to do and how am I going to do it? That's when I went into the private lending space, where it worked out that my girlfriend's friend's dad was a private lender in Toronto. And I basically said, hey, I don't know how we could set this up, but I want to try to bring as much business to you as possible to fund with your private lending money.
So when was this? How long ago was this?
So this was, if it's 2021 now, I want to say this is from February of 2019 to the beginning of COVID. So pretty much right in that early second quarter of 2020.
Right.
This is the one job where I definitely learned more than I learned anywhere else, which really made me confident in my knowledge of the mortgage industry and just, how to deal with brokers and people. But again, I just found it wasn't the right place for me, because at the end of the day, your average Joe who wants to just buy a house or a condo, I couldn't help them. I was going after these niche, very difficult deals, which again, I felt like I was turning away too much business, which is then how I found Clear Trust. So Clear Trust I found from a friend of mine from high school, who we both know, Dan, and basically we've been in touch since high school. And then when I was with the private lender, I was working with brokers. So he was one of the guys I was working with. And he basically said, hey, like, you're making a mistake. Like, if you come over here, any private deals you're still getting, we work with all these private lenders anyways. Right. Why not come here and open up your whole scope to all these residential files you're turning away?
Right.
Which then made me realize, holy shit, yeah, I'm making a mistake. And then August of 2020, I made the jump. Right. So it's been just over a year, and it's been probably the best decision I've ever made, especially career-wise for sure, but life-wise it's been.
So what do you think? And I mean, I definitely, the goal here isn't to turn this into an interview where I'm just asking questions and you're responding to them, but I am curious, because we have, like, just to go back on our background, we're both 95s.
Yep.
We're both 26 years old. We both operate in the same circles, have, friends of friends, but we never really, I don't even know if we met before I sat down with you at Kiva's.
It's crazy. I want to say like we probably crossed paths at like a pre.
Yeah.
Maybe
probably,
something like that,
for sure,
but
for
like
sure. Dapped each other up and said what's going on. And like, that's about it. And I saw you tweeting, about something, but, we never were really friendly, and we never had that opportunity to have conversations and to, hang out. And, but we did share a lot of mutual friends, obviously. So, going back, I don't remember how long ago this was. I guess this was right when you got into the business.
Yeah.
Right when you started working with Clear Trust, we sat down at Kiva's, and, I think you're wearing like sweatpants and a t-shirt and we had like eggs, and I had eggs and onions and a couple cups of coffee on the house. Thank you very much.
Oh, my pleasure.
And from there, my first thought was, the way that I like to run my business is just, the number one word is genuine for me. I just want to run it as genuine as possible. I want to be honest with people. No bullshit, no filter. Not being the car salesman who's just trying to get your business right here and now. I want to try and create relationships that will last for a lifetime. And when I sat down with you, even though we probably sat down for maybe an hour, I saw that like you weren't trying to sell me on, hey, use me because I'll give you free Kivas for the rest of your life. As your broker, you just sat me down and said, listen, I will service your clients as if they're my own family.
Right.
And that's what I say to my clients is like, I'm going to service you as if you are my mom. And if my mom wanted to buy a house, I would be looking day and night, doing whatever it took to make that happen. Right. And, you can, it's one thing to believe that, but it's another thing to, send a couple clients over and you're literally taking their hand, walking them through the entire process, that when they're a first time home buyer and they have no idea what they're doing, in the process of making the biggest purchase of their lives, maybe ever. And again, not to pump your tires or toot your horn, but have had nothing but unbelievable feedback. And, that's why the business keeps coming, because, you treat people right and they respect that. And most people can see through the bullshit, right? So I think that people who are looking at this business just in terms of transactions and seeing people as dollar figures rather than actual people who need their problems solved, I think eventually in the long run, it doesn't work out for them.
I couldn't agree more. And thank you for all those kind words. Obviously, we've done, X amount of business together. And I feel like the way that I look at it, and I think we've discussed, maybe we haven't discussed, but I think clients look at it the same, is almost like we're a team in terms of the realtor and the mortgage broker they're working together behind the scenes as well, which I think is so important for clients because they just feel like they're really being taken care of full circle, which is where if you recommend me to do a deal for somebody, they know that they're in good hands before I've even said hello.
Right.
Which is so important already. And like you said, I treat every client like it's a family member. It's a great way to put it.
So how do you now, we've talked a little bit about mortgages and finance and your journey over there. And we've talked a little bit about the morning tilt, which you do once a week.
Yeah.
How do you balance the two? Obviously, it's like you don't have day-to-day work with your podcast and whatnot, but I'm sure you'd like to grow that as much as possible. Like, what are your goals with that? So
when we first started, the goal was always, let's have a good time. We need a hobby. We do nothing all day. Let's have a hobby and let's see where it goes, right? What we didn't realize was people actually like listening to what we have to say about sports and picks and whatever we talk about. Our next goal, which congrats on you doing it right from the jump, is camera, because ours is strictly a voice podcast, which we do get listeners. I just think being able to take clips from it, post on TikTok, post on the whole thing on YouTube, I think that would really help us get a bigger reach, which is our next goal for sure. What's our goal? In a perfect world, like my dream scenario, which won't happen, would be like, Barstool calls and says, hey, we love this podcast. Right. But obviously we're trying to be realistic. As many listens as we can get week to week, grab a sponsorship somewhere down the road that believes in us and will give us whatever we need to kind of, go buy a camera, go do what we have to do. But really, it's just us having a good time. Right. I would continue recording this podcast with 0 listens a week because we just have so much fun.
Yeah.
And it's
and
it's what we love.
And I will say this right here and now on national television that I have said to you before that I don't know if you guys have guests, but I can fucking hold my own on a sports podcast. So if it ever comes up where you need to give real estate advice,
100%.
or maybe I'll throw a little sponsor in there. We'll do a little Stein Realty Group sponsor of the Morning Tilt. It's always I just want you to be open to
talking.
it.
Now we're talking.
Listen, I'm not putting any pressure on you. I'm just be open to the idea, and maybe we'll talk in a couple months and get something done.
100%. My only fear, and I actually thought about it before. You're a Steelers fan, and I already have to deal with one of those on my podcast.
Yeah,
so I think
that's true.
My brain could only handle. No, but I'm joking. Of course, we'd love to have you, and absolutely, we'll figure something out.
Most people think that they can just go out condo shopping, house shopping before they're approved or anything like that, and that's a huge misconception. Because I say to everyone, like, talk to somebody first.
Yep.
If it's not me, fine, but talk to somebody so that you can know what you need to look for and what you need to be approved. Because like you said, Scotiabank can be giving you $700,000 in a rate of 2.5. RBC can be giving you a rate of 2.3, and Equitable Bank can be 3.1, right? So
yep.
I think the way that someone once explained it to me, it's like going to a restaurant and they only have one item to order. Whereas coming to you, it's like, no, you have a menu of every single A bank out there, and then you'll have rates, you'll have mortgage amounts, incentives, all that different stuff. So, and it doesn't cost anything to work with a mortgage specialist / mortgage broker. It just means there's someone in your corner helping you out, right?
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. And like you said, the menu example is perfect because yes, TD might be offering you X amount, but how do you even know if you can get more somewhere else without actually going through and doing the process? So for me, it's like I could tell you exactly what you can get approved for. Pre-approvals are so important these days, especially as almost every offer is firm or close to firm.
Right.
So important to know what you could borrow, see what the payments will look like, have somebody that you can call, after 5:01 on a Thursday because the bank's closed. Just all those little things. It just makes your life a little bit easier.
Right. And to get a little bit personal, your plan, like, do you have a personal plan, like in terms of, I know you're thinking about getting into the market and possibly looking at something and buying something over the next, like, other than step one, which is obviously to call me, what's your plan? Like, what are your ideas? What are your thoughts right now?
Yeah. Well, if it isn't obvious, yes, I will be calling you, but, plan right now is, the girlfriend of 8.5 years, shout out. There you go. She finishes her master's program in December. We're going to Florida in December. Going to have a great time for a couple weeks. Plan is kind of to get back January, February and start, looking around. Condo, most likely. Yonge and Eglinton, most likely.
Okay.
Yeah, start taking notes. Exactly. Needs to have a balcony, full-size kitchen, but
Right.
We'll get into the details. But yeah, we're pretty much ready to rock come early next year, which is really exciting.
Right. That's awesome. And I mean, a lot of people, it's such a daunting process for a lot of people. I mean, I'm posting all over TikTok about different things, and then I have in my comments just people hating on me, being like, you're the bloodsuckers of this city, killing the market, driving prices up. And but the government, and through different incentives and first-time home buying programs and through CMHC financing, we are trying to make it easier for first-time home buyers to get into the market. Even though prices are going crazy, if you look at it on like a monthly expenses basis, and you rewind 15 years ago when my parents bought their first ever house at like $250,000, but they were paying 15% mortgage rates,
Literally.
and they had to put down 25%. Like, their mortgage payments were still $4,000, right?
It's 100%.
And just because the reality is, and I don't know if it's a shitty reality or if it just is life, that you're never going to pay off your mortgage. Like, unless you hit the lottery or you're making X amount of money or you're in a commission industry where you can get lump sums, you have to completely forget about paying off your mortgage. And you got to more so think about, contributing to your equity, hopefully your property appreciating so that when you sell it, you can make your money. Like, let's just say this condo, right? A lot of people think, how am I ever going to own this 4-bedroom house in, at Yonge and Lawrence?
Right.
Well, realistically, if you when you have enough money to buy an $800,000 condo, with 10% down, 80 grand. Hopefully 5 years later, that property appreciates and now it's $1 million property. So you have all your equity from your 10% down payment plus your $200,000 of profit. Now all of a sudden you have your down payment for your next house. So and that's a perfect world, obviously, and it's not easy, but it's not as hard as people make it out to be. You just have to be diligent. You have to do your research. You have to speak to the right people, and you got to plan, right?
You stole the word. The word planning is the number one word I always use. It's maybe today's not the day. Maybe it's not this second, but planning today for how to get there as quick as possible is so important. And that comes through, what could I borrow today? What could I borrow in 2 months if I, this changes, or I get rid of this debt, or I save more money, whatever the situation is. Planning that is just, it's everything.
I mean, if you have enough time to go online and to, check what that Gucci bag is worth now, and then 2 weeks later, check what it's worth now, and then check if you can afford it and run your numbers, and like my girlfriend does, then you also have enough time to just pick up the phone and be like, hey, Raf, I got that little bonus. Do you think that'll increase my borrowing power? Do you think that maybe I can afford something in 2 years if I keep saving the way that I am? Another huge thing is credit, right? A lot of people don't think about it. That, you're not paying your Visa bill on time. You're not paying your Amex on time. Like, that's affecting your credit. And the bank is going to look at that and say, if they're not paying that on time, then what else are they not going to be able to pay? The mortgage, right?
So 100%. And speaking of, can I buy an ear? Quick story, but my first phone call ever when I joined Clear Trust, a year and a month later, we closed, which was a big moment for me just because they came to me, young couple, horrible credit, very not great income, savings was weak. We started a plan a year and a month ago. They've come so far and they bought a place,
right?
Which was just, for me, really, really came full circle, and it felt great. And it's something that I'd love to do for more people.
Yeah.
Just put them on that right path, and eventually you'll get there.
Yeah. And again, most people are trying to sell you on something that is going to cost you something.
Yeah.
Getting advice from people who are in the industry and who hopefully care about you and care about giving you the right advice so that you tell everyone, like, that's literally what I tell all my clients. Like, I want to do an amazing job for you because I want you to go tell everyone I did an amazing job for you.
Exactly.
It doesn't work out for me if I do a shitty job and then you say, Brett's a shitty real estate agent. Now I'm never going to get any more business ever again. Right. So, it doesn't cost you anything to talk to people, to have that conversation, to put that plan in place, and to, like maybe one phone call every few months just to get an update 100%. And see what's going on. I don't think for a purchase that is so big, like $1 million condo or even a $500,000 condo, right, that you've been saving up all this money for X amount of years to be able to do, there needs to be way more planning and due diligence than there is right now. People are buying condos and taking less time at making their decision than they are picking shoes at Foot Locker, right? Like, I haven't shopped at Foot Locker in a long time. But, honestly, like, people look around and say, those bed sheets available at the Bay, I think they're a little bit cheaper if I get them at Costco. They're not doing that with a house. So, house, big, shiny, nice, money, yes, pay, firm, like, it's nuts. Pay more attention to the process, do your homework, do your research, and that's it, man.
No, I think, again, we're so similar on so much of our, I guess, career philosophy and work philosophy, real estate philosophy. So I couldn't agree more.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you being here. Can't guard Rafa coming in hot with the Kivas, bagels, cream cheese, Lux, tuna. I'm going to have breakfast, lunch, and dinner for the next 5 days before I get on that plane for the first time in 2.5 years and go to Vegas. I'm pumped.
I'm excited for you. And thank you so much for having me. I had a great time. I can't wait to see this one live, and I can't wait to see, where this podcast takes you.
Awesome.
It's going to be awesome.
Watch the morning tilt.
Thank you.
And, I don't know if I should be telling people to bet your picks because I've seen some of the red.
We're a little cool right now, but don't worry. We're going to heat up for sure.
Okay, awesome. This is, what's the name of this podcast again? Oh, yeah. Down to the Studs, working title, but I think I like it.
Me too.
Has a nice ring to it. And thanks for watching. If you stuck around, And we've got lots of awesome guests who are going to be coming on this podcast if they so choose. We're going to be talking about life, talking about different things. This is just the beginning. Max, I hope to have you on again. And, you do an awesome feature in our monthly newsletter. So if you want to be involved in that and you want to get on our monthly newsletter, send me your email address and you'll hear the awesome advice of Max Rafael, Rafa Financial. Thank you, buddy.
That was awesome. Thank you so much.
Appreciate
Had a great
you.
time. Always.